In this app, we're going to display two views side by side, just like Apple's Mail and Notes app. In SwiftUI, this is done by placing two views in a navigation view, then using a navigation link in the primary view to control what's visible in the secondary view. So we're going to start off our project by building the primary view for our app, which will show a list of all ski resorts, along with which country they're from and how many ski runs it has, how many pieces you can ski down, sometimes called trails or just slopes. I provided some assets for this project in the GitHub repository for this book, so if you haven't already downloaded them, please do so now. You should drag resorts.json into your project navigator, then copy all the pictures into your asset catalog. You might notice I've included 2x and 3x images for the countries, but only 2x images for resorts. This is intentional. Those flags will be used for both Retina and Super Retina devices, but the resort pictures are designed to fill all the space on an iPad Pro. They're more than big enough for a Super Retina iPhone, even at 2x resolution. To get our list up and running quickly, we have to define a simple resort struct that can be loaded from JSON. This means it has to conform to codable, but to make it easier to use in SwiftUI, we'll also make it conform to identifiable. The actual data itself is mostly just strings and integers, but there's also a string array called facilities that describes what else there is on the resort. I should add, this data is almost entirely fictional, so please don't use it in a real app. First, create a new SwiftUI file called resort.swift. Then give it this code. Struct resort conforms to codable and identifiable. Let ID string, let name string, let country string, let description string, and let image credit string. Then let price int, let size int, let snow depth int, let elevation int, let runs int, and finally let facilities array of string. As usual, it's a good idea to add an example value to your model so it's easier to show working data in your designs. This time though, there are quite a few fields to work with, and it's helpful if they had real data, so I don't really want to create one by hand. Instead, we have two options. The first option is to add two static properties, one to load all resorts into an array, and one to store the first item in that array. The first option is to add two static properties, one to load all resorts into an array, and one to store the first item in that array. The second is to collapse all that down to a single line of code, which honestly doesn't look nice. So of the two, I prefer the first option because it's simpler and has a little more use if we want to show random examples rather than the same one again and again. The nice thing here is, when we use static let for properties, Swift automatically makes them lazy. They don't get created until they're used. This means when we try to read an example resort, Swift will be forced to load all resorts first, then send back the first item in that array for our example resort. This means we can always be sure the two properties are run in the correct order. There's no chance of the example resort going missing because all the resorts weren't loaded yet. We want to load an array of resorts from JSON stored in our app bundle, which means we can reuse the same code we wrote for Project 8, the bundle decodable.swift extension. If you have yours to hand, you can drop it in now. If not, we'll make it again really quick. Make a new Swift file called bundle-decodable.swift and give it this code. Extension bundle, func, decode, generic over t, some kind of decodable, underscore file, a string, return to t. Guard let URL equals self.url for resource file with extension nil. Else, fatal error, failed to locate file in bundle. Guard let data equals try question mark data contents of URL. Else, fatal error, failed to load file from bundle. Then let decoder equals JSON decoder. Guard let loaded equals try question mark decoder.decode t.self from data. Else, fatal error, failed to decode file from bundle. And finally, return loaded. With that in place, we can now add a new static property to resort. I'll say static let all resorts, an array of resort, equals bundle.main.decode resorts.json. Then static let example equals all resorts 0. With that extension, we can now add a property to content view that loads all our resorts into a single array. Let resorts, array of resort, bundle.main.decode resorts.json. For the body of our view, we're going to use a navigation view with a list inside it, showing all our resorts. In each row, we're going to show a 40 by 25 flag of which country the resort's in, the name of the resort, and how many runs it has. 40 by 25 is actually smaller than our flag source image, and also a slightly different aspect ratio, so we can fix that by using resizable, scale to fit, and a custom frame. To make it look a little better on screen, we'll use a custom clip shape and a stroked overlay. When the rows are tapped, we're going to push to a detail view showing more information about the resort, but we haven't built that yet, so instead we'll just push to a temporary text view as a placeholder. Replace your current body property with this. A navigation view, list of our resorts, resort in, a navigation link, pointing to the destination of the text of our resort name. Inside there will be an image of our country, which is resizable, scale to fill, and that frame of 40 by 25. We'll clip it to be a rounded rectangle with corner radius 5. Then we'll overlay a rounded rectangle with corner radius 5. And stroke that with a black color and line width 1. Then after the image, we'll have a V-stack, alignment leading, with our resort name as text in a headline font, then the resort runs as more text in a secondary foreground color. Then add a navigation bar title saying resorts. Go ahead and run the app now and you should see it looks good enough. But if you rotate your iPhone to landscape, you'll see the screen goes blank. This happens because SwiftUI wants to show a detail view there, but we haven't made one yet. Let's fix that next.